Imagine this. You're a university student trying to scrape together enough cash for tuition. You and a buddy decide to start a business with zero experience based on a single problem: your parents' dirty grill. So you start knocking on doors. No fancy ads, no website, just pure hustle. And on the very first day, 5 strangers say yes. That's the moment a simple summer job becomes a nationwide empire. It's the moment you realize that the most successful businesses aren't always built on complex tech, but on solving a real-world problem that everyone else has overlooked. That was the light bulb moment for Michael Sutton. I'm Ryan Atkinson, and this is the Upflip Podcast, where we uncover the secrets of building and running successful businesses. Today, that door-to-door hustle has evolved into Grill Hero, a rapidly expanding franchisee aiming to become the 1-800-GOT-JUNK of grilled cleaning across North America. Michael's here to break down the playbook for turning a simple service idea into a scalable, high-revenue brand. I am so excited for this conversation. This is a whole new idea we have not had on the podcast. So, Michael, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Ryan. Happy to be here.
Let's rewind back the clock. Go into that very first summer Grill Hero. You landed 5 sales on your first day with zero experience. I mean, a lot of people would feel fear or imposter syndrome. What immediate validation did that do for your mindset, and what core belief did it install into you about entrepreneurship?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, door to door is hard. I didn't have a lot of sales experience. It was kind of like we had an idea, we wanted to test it out. So it was super validating seeing those first 5 people really say yes to it. Keep in mind, at the time we were charging pretty low prices. We kind of made it like a no-brainer offer just so we could test it out. But we actually had no idea how to clean grills when we went and pitched that. So it was like, we got the customers. Now let's go figure out the service, go back to the customers and provide something of value. And then it was just obviously from there reiterating and building the business. So.
Well, let's talk about that very first job, because as it was described, it was a, quote, an 8-hour disaster. It's a moment probably a lot of people would quit, but what did that failure of that 8-hour disaster teach you about the importance of the process, and how did that reframe that disaster is necessary learning curve? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I think that was kind of the first point of wow, we actually started a business. I think a lot of people kind of get into business. It's fun at the start. You have your business plan, and then you go get your customer and you actually work on fulfilling that. And then we just got hit with that, realization that we really didn't know what we were doing. So our first job, I think we actually cleaned my parents' grill, and we just were testing out different, processes. We learned on YouTube, we figured things out. And then we showed to my parents, we're like, this is horrible. We wouldn't pay for this. It took us super long. And so we went back to the hardware store, grabbed different supplies, reiterated. We got it down to, somewhat of a science where we're like, okay, we can comfortably, 2 of us do a grill in about 4 hours. So it was still 8 man hours. So it wasn't a workable business model at that point. It was okay, we had somewhat of a process. We did a good enough job where it was we're charging $60 at the time. So the expectations weren't super high. And so we went out, we offered that to the customers, and they're like, yeah, it's good. 2 young kids doing what they can to kind of start a business. So we had a lot of that initial support. But then from there, it was okay, we have to focus on building the right service. And as we did, more trips to the hardware store, test out different policies, procedures, different cleaning techniques, we were able to really reiterate that process over the course of time and really nail down a really high quality service. And then that's when our, pricing kind of went up from there.
Talk to us about being a young entrepreneur, being a young, scrappy entrepreneur people love to work with. I think if you are a younger entrepreneur listening, it's truly your age is your superpower, because it's something that you can leverage in sales conversations to be I'm just an 18-year-old kid that's just trying to start a business. Will you give me a shot? Talk to us how that became a superpower for you.
Absolutely. It's funny because now that I'm 28 now, I actually just turned 28 last week. And so now I'm kind of losing that. But I absolutely 100% agree with you. It's such a superpower having youth on your side. People genuinely wanted to help us. We were 18 years old when we started the business. So we were young and naive and just full of energy and wanting to help people. And people saw that right away. So they gave us a shot. And we leveraged that for a very long time, with customers for sure, but also reaching out to mentors and stuff like that through LinkedIn, getting people to give us their time and feedback and support. And so that was honestly one of the biggest helps that we got, was having that youth on our side. And so I always tell people start a business as early as you possibly can, leverage that, and you're going to learn a tremendous amount through that journey.
Okay, let's talk to someone that's okay, I want to start a service-based business. And we hear a lot of different strategies on how to get those first 5 to 10 customers. I know you were doing door knocking. What now, what would you advise people to get their first 5 to 10 customers?
Honestly, I think door knocking is the best way to start. And whether it's like physically you're going to a door or you're just doing cold outreach. But our first customers came from door to door. We did that for our first entire summer where we just did door to door. We leveraged our, networks. So like friends, parents, things like that. And that's how we grew like our first, I would say, couple hundred customers, just like organic. It allowed us to really build the relationships with them. Where again, like I mentioned, like we weren't charging a lot because we were still figuring out the service. But as we, provided a better service, our pricing went up. And so we really leveraged kind of like those first 100 customers to have a really good relationship with them and really kind of tweak and iterate what their expectations were. And as we, delivered more value, we're able to charge more money. And then from there, in our second summer, we did like lean more into paid ads. We started Google ads and Facebook and stuff like that. And that's where like the scale in the business really came. But I would never have wanted to skip the step of doing door to door first. I feel like that was tremendously valuable just to have that like personal relationship with the customer and be able to kind of reiterate. Because if we started by going on digital and like we wouldn't have had that same relationship, we wouldn't be able to kind of reiterate the service as we needed to kind of build what we ended up building.
Yeah, love it. And let's talk about a really big tipping point for you when it comes to building this, because you've received a $10,000 grant, which is just insane, from your university's like entrepreneurial program. One, like, tell us like, how did you get this, and like, what did you guys do with that $10,000? What was like the first three investments for you?
Yeah, so it kind of was divine timing almost. Like coming out of that first summer, we got into this hub incubator program through a university. They gave us the funding and mentorship. They actually stopped offering that grant after that first year. So like it was kind of the first year they were offering the program. And so we got super lucky. We got in there. We used the money to just invest in turning our business from like two guys knocking on doors to actually hiring out teams and, branding and building like a brand, a website, like all these different things. So we took that money and really put it into making the business from like two guys figuring it out to like actually having employees and all the different things that go along with that. So that was super helpful. And we got mentorship and we were in kind of a cohort with a number of other businesses. So that helped us really just start thinking differently and really treating it as more of a business that started to kind of scale.
Well, let's talk about like getting the employees and like scaling. I mean, how long were you doing the actual like cleaning yourself on the grills before like you hired someone to like do that? Because it's super important to like step away, obviously, and do like the manual work. I mean, I feel like that should be a lot of entrepreneurs' goal, is to step away from the manual work. Talk to us about that.
100%. Yeah, that first summer was like it was just us cleaning, and then we would clean throughout the day, and then we would knock on doors throughout the night. Typically, we're filling up kind of our next day or a couple days in advance with that. And so we were just pulling like 12-hour days, doing all the cleanings ourselves, putting the money in our pocket, and then going and selling the next day's jobs. And then kind of we did that for 4 months in a row. It really allowed us, like I mentioned, continue to reiterate the process, have the first direct experience with the customer, really understanding kind of our value proposition. And then we took that learning and built the business, going through that hub incubator program in our university in our second year. And then from there, that's when we hired the teams and we kind of stepped away from doing a lot of the cleanings ourselves. And then we started kind of managing the crews. We would still jump in, I would say, from time to time. And we would obviously be hands on the ground doing like training and things like that on job sites. But typically, like we weren't getting our hands as dirty. We're focusing more on running the digital ads and really being business owners at that second year. But I 100% agree. Like you have to kind of get your hands dirty at the start to really understand your business and then train it out and then grow from there.
Most people spend months, sometimes years, just thinking about starting a business. But what if you could do it in just 10 days? That's exactly what the 10-day business launch plan is designed for. It's a step-by-step roadmap that takes you from idea to real operational business in just 10 days. Click the link in the description below and get ready with your business. Love that. Get your hands dirty. That's going to be one of our takeaways. So listeners, stay tuned for that at the very end, where I'll give you my 3 takeaways. Get your hands dirty is probably going to be one of them there. Let's talk about hiring out, because it's my understanding that you hired your friends to do it. One, would you advise people to hire their friends to do it? And then two, like truly, what was the hardest part of letting go of the cleaning, like trusting other people to do it to maintain that quality?
Yeah. I think at the time it made sense. Looking back, it was like not the best to hire friends. I think it's hard. It's hard to hold your friends accountable as employees, absolutely. But at the start, when you're starting a business, it's like almost the path of least resistance, where it's like, oh, I have some friends who want a job, so we did that. Definitely wouldn't advise it holistically, but at the time, it did make sense. And then from there, I would say we put that rule after we did it once of like, okay, no more friends, and then we actually started, going through Indeed and hiring employees like the typical way.
So when you're hiring people from Indeed, are these just like 1099 workers? Are they actually like full-time employees? What does that look like?
Yeah, so we actually tested this out. So like we had contractors, we tested that out, and then we tested out employees. We found with the contractor model, like it really didn't work well. We weren't able to hold them as accountable. It was very difficult to properly manage them, frankly. So we went back to the employee model. And yeah, it's more expensive in terms of kind of like the payroll taxes and all the things you have to pay on top of that, especially in Canada. It's like, more significant than in the US. But it just made so much more sense for a model. We could really be a lot tighter on quality control and the things that were really important to us. So we did test out the contractor model, didn't work well. We went back to the employee model. And then that's when we kind of found franchising as like our ultimate business model and how we were going to scale the business.
You know what's so funny about you saying like contractors don't work? I was literally just having lunch with a friend 2 hours ago who's like starting like a cleaning business here in Austin. And he was like, honestly, the hardest challenge of this right now is labor. We're all 1099 employees. And he said literally the past 2 weeks, two people have just completely ghosted him. No accountability, just stopped responding, stopped showing up to job sites. It's so interesting that like labor is like truly like one of the biggest challenges when it comes to like a home service based business.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's really the two things of getting customers and then having someone to do the work, right? So you really have to nail both of those. And yeah, we just found the contractor model, frankly, didn't work well. People are like, oh, I'm just a contractor. I'm a 1099. I don't have to. They just have that kind of different entitlement. And then when you have employees, you can actually build a culture, build a team. You can dictate like when you need them to work and when you don't need them to work. And there's just more control. And you really need that to build a proper brand with the proper quality control and all the things you want in place to really build a solid service business.
I absolutely love that. That's another really good takeaway for us. But let's talk about overhead because obviously when you're doing like contract work, 1099s, I mean, it can be a little up. You can pay them more, you can pay them less, all depending on like the seasonality of it. How did you guys keep overhead costs like low, especially in the early days where every like budget like decision like really matters? So talk to us about that.
So, I mean, you always work on obviously having consistent hours for the staff, but like just because you have someone as an employee doesn't mean you have to pay them 40 hours a week, all the time. Like we would have a lot of part time. So, like the way we do our demand planning internally is we figure out, okay, what are our labor hours going to look like? And we forecast out based on sales trends and a number of different factors. And then we look at like month by month how many hours we actually need. So, we're not going to go out and hire like 20 full time staff. We might have 5 full time staff and like 15 part timers. We're going to fill in the gaps. And then we just like, as a service business, we always work on matching like how much work we're going to have with how many hours we actually need. And then we just run a schedule of our employees. So some weeks you might have someone working 10 hours, 20 hours, and you work on having kind of those flexible staff members that can kind of scale up and scale down when you need them.
So I absolutely love that. And so what I love about Grill Hero is we connected on LinkedIn first. That was like how we first got introduced to each other. This is truly like a business model or a business idea I've never heard of. And I absolutely love it because I think it is just so unique. And like I have a grill back at home and like I can imagine like how this could be used here. So let's talk about like that first mover advantage. Like how did being like the first to market, if you guys were like, how did you guys have to like educate people on it? And how did that give you like a strategic advantage just being able to get to people's houses first?
Yeah. I mean, the reason why we started the business was there was no one in our area offering it, which is pretty unique because, like, especially going through business school and stuff, like everyone's trying to come up with, the next Apple, the next Uber, like these very complex business models. And we were just like, well, people need this service and no one's offering it. So we just did that. And it worked exceptionally well for us. And as we expanded to more markets, we kind of saw the same thing. Like there was very few competitors, maybe a handful of other people doing it. But really, it was like that first mover advantage. And like for the first while, it was educating people. People just didn't know they had to even clean their grills or they hadn't done it before and they thought they should, but they didn't know there was companies out there they can do it for. Now we've seen that completely change. Like in our markets, like we have good market penetration where most customers either know about us or they know that grill cleaning is an actual service. But as we franchise to different locations across Canada and into the US, we are finding markets where we're kind of seeing that again. Like we're almost going back in time 5 years where it's like, we just went into Edmonton, for example, and there wasn't a single company offering this in Edmonton. And it's like there's 1.5 million people in Edmonton, like it's a large market. And so we're seeing a lot of initial success because we have the systems of like a 10-year business and we're now going into a completely, brand new market with no competition. Our franchisee there is able to, really leverage that and really have like a lot of initial success in that market, which has been super cool to see.
Super, super amazing. Yeah, that's what I like love about this for it. So do you guys see like a lot of competition? I know you're based in Canada, but you're expanding to like the US as well. Like truly, like I haven't heard of a business idea like this. So is this something that like you see like there's a ton of opportunity for?
I would say there's more and more competition. I think we're doing a good job helping more people come into the market because we're, the franchise system, we're promoting that quite a bit, which is fine. A lot of the competition we're seeing is kind of like mom and pops or like younger students, people starting up like local businesses, which honestly I encourage because it helps people get familiar with the service. It helps spread awareness that people actually need to clean their grills. And that's like the number one thing that we see is I think it's 70 to 80% of Americans own a barbecue. And like very few people actually do the proper cleaning and maintenance. So having more companies come and educate the consumer is actually quite good for us. I think it helps grow the market as a whole. But then we're still kind of like, in my perspective, like we're 10 years ahead. Like we've been building this brand for 10 years. We're working on becoming the largest national brand. And so we are seeing kind of more people come into the market, but I would say we're still kind of at that first mover advantage where we have the scale and we're building this. So I encourage a lot of people to join our franchise system, but if they want to start it up on their own, like all power to you. It's a great business model, and there's definitely a strong need for it to help build the market out.
hmm If someone did want to start this on their own, I mean, what does the startup cost look like? You don't have to give us the whole secret sauce here, but like, what does startup cost look like? What are like the tools that you need to do it?
Yeah. So, like, as a franchisee, if you were going to buy a territory from us, we charge 65,000, like our kind of startup capital. That includes like the territory fee, all the startup supplies and equipment, different things that you would need there. And then you'd be starting from year 10. Like, that's how I kind of pitch it to people when we're on a lot of like franchise development calls. It's like, yeah, you can go start it on your own, but you're going to be starting everything completely from scratch. Lots of trial and tribulation over the years of growing this. So it's like, it makes a lot of sense to go with the franchise system, especially if you get access to that kind of capital. You're going to be able to scale a lot quicker with like systems that are built out over the last 10 years. If you're going to start on your own, I would say, yeah, you can definitely start it for less, but it's going to take you longer to scale. So it really just depends on kind of what you're looking for. But I would say ultimately, like a lot of the startup capital we have in our investment is going to be working capital, making sure you're properly financed, as well as your initial marketing. So you can hit the ground running and you can actually scale your territory. You can go to a hardware store, pick up $500 of supplies and start cleaning grills, but you're going to be, just offering a service in your local community, not scaling a legitimate business. So it kind of just depends on, what you're looking to do.
I love it. You guys have legitimate prices here because you guys went from, as you were saying, like $65 to start 70, whatever it was, to an average of now like 275. We didn't have a whole lot of resistance to that pricing, upcharge, I would say. What does this tell you about like the value of like customer pricing and like how did you guys land on 275? Talk to us about that because I think that's such a great ticket size for home services, I feel like.
So when we actually boosted it, so now our average job size is it's about 315 in Canada and like
Wow.
330 in the US. So we do focus on like the higher end grills. Like we're not going out and cleaning like your Walmart barbecue that was $200, kind of thing. We're targeting people that have spent at least $1,000 on their grills. In a lot of cases, it's people who have built like really nice outdoor kitchens. They have really nice setups and they're hiring us, a couple times a year to come out and take care of their appliance for them. I mean, ultimately, what we've done is we've built the strongest brand in the space. So if someone has a $10,000 grill, like they're going to want to go with more of an established player. They're going to want to go with the brand that they can, really trust. And that's the power of the franchise system. That's the power of Grill Hero is we really built that brand that customers know we are kind of like the premium brand name for the service. And they're going to trust us over, your local kind of guy offering it on Facebook Marketplace, especially when we're talking about cleaning like these larger systems that they've really invested a lot of money into.
Let's talk about failure a little bit more here because you've tried expanding into like new cities yourself here, which kind of failed, I guess, but it did lead you into franchising, which is obviously huge. And that was like how you guys have really gotten so big. It does seem like failure has been a chapter in your story as it is with everyone's here. Talk to us about how failure really has propelled you guys forward.
And when I talk about 10 years of experience, it's like 10 years of failure, right? So like you get to start and learn from all those failures so you don't go through them yourself because they just take a lot of time and they're painful. But yeah, the biggest thing is if you can learn from them. So yeah, when we first tested out, like, scaling the business, we went to other markets, not as a franchise system, but as like our own corporate territory. And we just found that it was, we split our focus. Like we didn't have the capital to properly invest in the other area. We didn't have the focus. We kind of just, took the existing managers we had. And now it's like, hey, instead of looking after this area, now you're over all these areas. And we just really didn't see the scale that we needed to. Like we kind of just stretched our operation. And then it was just way more expensive for us to operate these bigger areas. Like we could do $2 million in a much smaller location versus $2 million across like a huge geographical region. And you're always going to want to have like that smaller, tighter operation because your mileage is going to be cheaper. It's way easier to manage. You're able to kind of go deeper. And so that's when we really found franchising is like, yeah, we can expand corporately, but it's not the best model. When you can have someone come in with their own investment, their own, focus and really focus on specific areas, they can go deeper, they can own their neighborhoods, and we can build a really strong brand in every single area we operate in. And so we tested out franchising 3 years ago. We've kind of never looked back because we've just partnered with really strong franchise partners who are really owning their areas and expanding. And it's allowing us to scale on a much larger playing field than we would if we were trying to do everything corporately ourselves.
One of the principles that I love for you when it comes to the franchising model is managers from day one, and you're not going to be cleaners. Talk to us about that like core philosophy and like what exactly does that mean? Because I feel like a lot of people, they are worried if they're going to get into franchising, like, oh man, like this sounds awesome, but I don't have to like clean the grills. But in your guys' case, that's not it. Talk to us more about that.
Yeah. And so, I mean, going back to my previous point, always got to get your hands dirty. You got to understand the business. You'll be willing to clean grills, but you shouldn't spend all your time cleaning grills. So typically in our franchise program, like in their first year, obviously you got to go through the training. You got to understand first principles of how to clean a grill. You have to be able to train it out. But as soon as possible, we want you out of that. Like we don't want people thinking that they're going to buy a franchise and then their head's going to be in a grill for their first couple years or even their first year, because then no one's steering the ship, no one's running the business. So our model is you come in, you learn the ins and outs, you hire technicians from day one. So when you launch your business, you're already going to have techs hired, and then you're managing those techs and you're focusing on sales and marketing, really being like the mayor of your city. So like going to events, leveraging a local network to build customer base, and, focusing on just really following our systems to grow in your local area. And that is your job. Your job is not necessarily it's not to clean grills. Like it's obviously sometimes there's going to be scenarios where you might need to hop in, you might need to go train someone up or help them improve their process. But like 90% of your time should be focusing on managing the operation, growing the business, focusing on sales and marketing, partnership opportunities, and then scaling your team, hiring more technicians, and then looking at more territories to expand into.
So a franchisee invests around, $65,000 to get started with your team. Can you break down like where does that money go and like what is a realistic path to profitability in the next 12 to 24 months? So if you can talk about that.
Yeah. And like when we bring people through our franchise system, like we work with them on like building out a pro forma. So we look at the specific territory they're looking at and really kind of nail down on helping them build out their business plan. So when they launch from day one, they know exactly what their targets look like. But to go into some more kind of specifics on the franchise fee. So when I talk about the 65,000, that's for one territory. So for us, a territory size is 50,000 households who make at least 100,000 in household income. We base it on income because that way you're getting our actual target customers in your area. And typically it works out to like 250 to 300,000 people based on the territory size. And then so of that 65, 30,000 is the franchise fee that gives you exclusive rights to your area that you're buying. And then the remaining is $15,000 in working capital. So making sure you have money in the bank to hold you afloat before you launch your territory and start actually like generating revenue, and making sure you have enough of a safety net there. And then the remainder of it, like a large portion, another 15,000 actually is your startup marketing. So we have an entire launch program where you're going to invest $15,000 into your initial startup marketing package. That's going to give you everything you need to kind of get your business launched and off the ground, start generating appointments and bookings. And you're going to be following our system to get you from zero to hero is what we call it. But really taking you from like, step one to having, when you launch, a number of bookings in your calendar. Like we look to have at least like 3 or 4 weeks already booked up. So when you launch, your technicians are hired and they have that pipeline that they're working through. And then you get to step back and really focus on, building more demand, hiring more technicians. And so we have that capital in there so that you can really hit the ground running properly. And then the remaining is like your initial supplies and equipment, the initial fees for, your insurance and, lease payments on a branded vehicle and a number of different things. But that's kind of how the breakdown looks. And then if they were to look to like more territory, we have like a tear down version. So like their first territory fee is 30,000 and then 25 and then 20 and so on. And so we have people looking at, 2 territories or 1 or 3 right off the bat, typically. But that's how kind of the breakdown works.
So I want to ask about that market perspective because you gave a phenomenal like breakdown of that. Is there markets that this work better? And is it like those southern states where they can use their grills year round? What does it like typically look like? I mean, I'm just curious there.
So, I mean, we started the business in Toronto, Canada. So like we are built for seasonality. Like our business model, we run in a number of different seasonal markets, including Edmonton, which is like, you're familiar with Canada. Edmonton, can
It's
get to
cold.
minus 50 in the winter. So we have a model for seasonal climates. However, our first US location was actually Palm Beach County, Florida. And so they're a non-seasonal market. And the business model just like, it's almost like on steroids down there, right? Because we have no downtime. We're all year round. And so going into the US, we are really focusing on the southern markets, but we have the model that works in the northern markets. So we kind of have the best of both worlds. Strategically, we are focused on the south, but like we can really, plug this model into really any state, any area that we're registered to franchise in right now, which is super exciting.
I want to ask like a reflective question here, and one that I love to ask people that have been with their business for a long time. They've seen different periods of growth, periods of ups and downs here. You started out like doing it yourself. You moved to like CEO work, back to like expanding this franchise model. Is there a point for you where you felt like you grew the most, like professionally? When was that moment for you?
It's funny. It's actually right now. The last 7 months, I've grown the most personally, professionally in my career. And I guess the inflection point of that is I brought on a COO. So, I mean, I ran the business myself for the last 9 years, learned a lot. I think one of the biggest things I learned is like what I'm actually not good at, as well as what I am good at. And so instead of doing everything, I decided to go out, hire an experienced COO, someone with like, 30 plus years of business experience. And he's just really helped us take the business to an entire different stratosphere, brought in a ton of new processes, really kind of like stepped up our game. And so in bringing him on, he's taught me like a tremendous amount about business operations, also things that like I've let him focus on and been able to dive deeper on things that I'm really good at, which is super exciting. And so it's just been a big learning journey. And so I feel like I've gone through kind of a lot of professional development. Along the same time, we've also brought on really experienced professional franchisees. So like our last franchisees, they're a multi-unit franchisee of other franchise systems. The ones before that was like, they're past VP levels at large businesses. So like our franchise professionals we're bringing on are just like kind of stepping up the game as well. And so just being able to kind of lead this bigger group and more experienced group, I've really had to continue to look inward and build myself and my own experiences. And yeah, so it's been a tremendous amount of growth.
Well, I got to say that we've had a lot of businesses on here. This is definitely like a really unique one. So I want to thank you already for your time. Let's dive into our fan blitz questions. And these are questions submitted from our community. Listeners, if you want to join in on world-class entrepreneurs like Michael, who are building world-class brands, go to www.youtube.com/upflip and submit your questions there. But Michael, ready for our last 5 questions?
Sounds good. Let's do it.
What's one business tool under $100 that you can't live without?
It's funny because I actually just found it. It's called 90. So our business works on EOS. And for the longest time, we were doing it all manual. Now we have a 90.io, and it's just it's a software to run EOS in our business. And it's a game changer.
I love it. What's the most expensive mistake you made in business, and what did you learn from it?
Bringing on the wrong franchise partners. Early on, we were kind of excited to get dots on a map, and we got impressed by, certain people, and we brought on the people that just weren't the right culture fit. Like we just kind of put the culture fit aside and we said, well, this person has the capital, they can invest. So we brought them on, and it just wasn't the right fit culturally. They didn't fit our hero values, and we had to kind of part ways at the end. But what I learned from that is like, we have to be really, really serious about our values and really bring on people that fit with our culture going forward, and be very selective on the franchise partners we bring on.
If you had to start a business tomorrow outside of cleaning, what would it be?
Outside of cleaning, I would do another home service. I think mobile home service businesses are the best right now, and for a number of different reasons, but you could start a home service franchise business for very little capital, work with an experienced model and do very well. So I would probably be a franchisee of another home service brand is what I would do.
What book, podcast, or resource has had the biggest impact on your mindset?
EOS, so Traction, that group of books, we just implemented EOS at Grill Hero. And it's honestly just been a game changer. And like the more we kind of layer on, the deeper we go into it, the more value we're bringing to our franchise partners and throughout the organization. So I would highly tell anyone in the business community to look at EOS and bringing that into their business.
Last question for you. If you could give your younger self, the one just starting to knock on doors, one sentence of advice, what would it be?
Knock on more doors. I mean, starting out, I think I was like, we were scared, but we did it anyways. And like going back, I would just say, keep knocking. Like never give up and start sooner, right? Like it's just getting started. And so I think that's the biggest advice I can get to young people looking to start businesses is go knock on the doors and sell the service before you know how to do it. Like that's the one piece of advice I'd love to give to people. It's like, don't wait until you've perfected everything. Don't wait till you've built the business plan and done all these things. Like just go knock on doors.
I love it. Michael, you're the absolute best. One final question for you. Someone's like, oh my gosh, I need to learn more about Michael, learn more about Grill Hero. Where can they do so at?
Yeah, they can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on there. So it's Michael Sutton on LinkedIn, and maybe you can drop the link as well. Or they can go to grillhero.com, check us out on Instagram. We post pretty frequently on there. And yeah, connect with us. If they're interested in franchising, we can start the conversation.
Everyone, great episode here with Mike. 3 quick takeaways for you. Number 1, you got to get your hands dirty. When you're just starting a new business, you got to be able to test the systems that you put in place. Get your hands dirty. Number 2, this is a technical answer, but employee over contractors. Employees you're just going to have way more control over. So as cash flow, runway allows, get employees over contractors. Number 3, I think this is generally a great opportunity for anyone to get started with their first business. take some YouTube videos, listen to this podcast again, and you can be off and running your first company. Amazing episode here with Mike. If you guys are enjoying this podcast, make sure to give us a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcast. It helps us get more amazing ideas, entrepreneurs, businesses onto the show. So thank you everyone so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next Monday. You're the best, Michael. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it.